Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next interview of the Master of Manifestation Online Summit 2020. Today, we are with Rory. Rory, thank you for being here and talking about your entrepreneurial and manifesting journey. I'm glad that we can discuss that together. Rory is the founder and CEO of Self-Care Global, and you're very, very present in terms of social entrepreneurship and social impact. That's how I discovered you, and I had the idea to be in touch with you. So I give you 5 minutes to introduce yourself with your own words so that the audience can get to know you better. So can you share about your journey, where you come from, what you've been through, and what led you to move to Bali later in your life?
Hey, Kevin, thank you so much. And hello to anybody, anywhere in the world, wherever this gets to. But I guess for those that don't know me, my name's Rory CALLAGHAN. And yeah, like Kevin said, the end goal for me was to build this beautiful conscious enterprise that had a social impact in the world, which is called self-care.global. And I've spent the last 5-6 years of my life self-funding it and getting it to a point now where it's really ready to go out to the world. But my journey definitely didn't start where I am now. It started, a very long time ago. And I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, a little sleepy town called Fremantle. And I had a single mother. My dad wasn't really present growing up. He had his own mental health issues, and he just will get straight to the heart and go real deep real quick. But he actually lived homeless in the community that I grew up. So it just, this dynamic growing up was quite interesting. And my dad taught me so much about empathy and compassion, and my mum, the way that they treated each other and they always tried to support each other. And my mum was such a beautiful soul as a single mother, and she was always trying to serve from an empty cup, and she was trying to she'd give you the shirt off her back, so to speak. So this was like my environment growing up, and it led me to be very, very independent. My mum always, she always gave me permission to kind of ask questions, be curious, figure things out. She always asked me what makes me happy, not what do you want to be when you grow up. So I think these kind of questions really shaped my existence. And yeah, and I guess, at about 17, 18, I did the usual schooling thing, did the tough subjects like chemistry and physics and English literature, and still managed to play football and have a social life. And I got into university, and that was where I first started to do sports science. And that's where I was really curious about the human body and how it worked and how it functioned and performed. And I wanted just to apply that for me so I could be a better athlete. But then the curiosity went further because I started to get stress fractures in my back. I wanted to figure out how to fix a human body. So then I went and did a master's in physiotherapy. And long story short, I had my dream job at 25, 26, burnt out. And this was like that dark night of the soul, that kind of existential crisis, whatever you want to call it, where I had the dream job. I'd kind of done everything I put my mind to, but I wasn't happy, I wasn't healthy, and I felt very disconnected. And I remember just asking myself those 3 questions. And I'm sure for anyone listening, you probably had those moments, maybe even this year. It's been 2020 has been one of those years where we've had the time to pause, to reassess, to realign. Maybe our plan didn't work out. And it's a beautiful moment to ask yourself, are you happy? Are you healthy? And do you feel connected? And if you answer no to those questions, then change something. And I did. And I remember just stepping back and just really looking at what was available around me. It was kind of like the veils got pulled off my eyes and up from my eyes. And I remember the first thing was like I had to earn my health back, and I had to be a health professional who was healthy, who was walking his talk and living in that vibration and serving from overflow. So that was a 2-year journey. That was fun, and I can speak into that a bit later. But I journeyed into the 12 medicines, like spirituality, mind is medicine, food is medicine, movement is medicine, work lifestyle balance, Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, casting a vision for my ideal lifestyle, self-help, shelf-help, all these things, and that was such a beautiful journey because I couldn't teach something that I was still learning myself. And yeah, eventually I earned my health back, and then I kind of looked back down the rabbit hole, and I was like, whoa, 7 in 10 people are living with a preventable disease. 7 in 10 people are living with a restricted human vessel, with a restricted life, they're trading time for money, they're working 100 hours a week like I was, and they're not really living, I just remember I had this this thing on my hand. I had like 1 million hours, and I was like, man, I get 1 million hours in this lifetime. What am I going to do? You know, like I've just spent 100 hours giving my time to an unconscious enterprise that I don't want to have anything to do with, but in my dream role, my dream job, right? So like this 26, 27 was a big melting pot of shift and change. And as I like got myself right, I just remember like my mind woke up, my gut brain axis, like the energy, the vibration, the frequencies, the synchronicities, they all just kind of appeared in plain sight. And the first thing I did was cast a vision for the future. And then I got really clear on what that was, got really clear on my internal compass and like my vision, my values, my passion, my purpose, the type of character that I wanted to be in this world, something that was unapologetic, something that where I didn't feel like I had comparison or judgment or I wasn't people pleasing. And then the next 5 years was just bringing that into existence, you know, whilst keeping, you know, the self-care principles going and chasing my ideal lifestyle and trying to be a good human and giving along the way. So I don't know if that sums it up, Kevin, but that's kind of it in a nutshell, man.
Yeah, that's a great sum up. 5 minutes, it's not easy, but thank you for sharing that. So you talk about that click that changed a lot of things, that change your mindset, your frequency, your vibration, the way you perceive the world and what you attracted to you. So that's my first question. Like, I understand that it all started here. I mean, you're as everyone, your whole journey bring you where you are right now, and led you to that moment where you had that click. How did that click happen? What was that click? How would you define and describe it?
Can I show you?
Yeah.
So the click was this. I remember casting a vision, and I hadn't been on a surf trip. You know, I dreamt of a life where I was surrounded by good people. That's that thing I talked about. How many hours, you get in the average lifespan. And I just started having a vision for the type of life I wanted to live. And I think the type of person I wanted to be, the social impact projects I wanted to be part of. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to, just to really tune into things that made me happy and share that vibration with the world. So I think that was the clicking point, and really owning like all of me, you know what I mean? And I remember in that moment, I knew this was like my vision and this is what I really wanted to do. And I knew that I really wanted to build this revolutionary platform and be part of the solution, because I was like, I can't stand around while 7 in 10 of the people I care about are living a restricted life, and not even being aware of it. And I was kind of shook awake, because like I was desperate, I was in a position where I was either going to go further down the health spectrum and maybe not exist, or make some big changes and earn my health back, you know what I mean? So I know that people have a vision for what their ideal lifestyle is. I think that's the big thing, and they want to be living that. And they've got a passion project and something they would really want to give to the world. And I just remember that when I was doing all the things that society had told me was awesome, I got to 25, 26 with my dream job. I was working harder than I ever had. And I just remember like I wasn't getting any more breathing space. I wasn't getting any more time. I was learning more things, and like, sure, I had some pieces of paper on the wall that said that I was smart and people held me in high esteem because of that. But I just felt, I felt empty, dude. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people relate to that feeling. And to be honest, I suppressed that feeling for a long time. The normal things come in when you get bored or emotional, or you get stressed financially, physically, mentally, emotionally in your relationships. I remember like just behaviors were starting to pop up where I was drinking a bowl of red wine on a Wednesday night by myself. And I was like, whoa, this isn't me. You know what I mean? Like, or I was finding that I was spending a lot of time in my head, and like, I started like developing like, those anxieties. And I never identify with being depressed or anxious or anything like that, but I definitely felt the full spectrum and spent a lot of time in those depths. And I just remember that I knew that just didn't feel good. You know what I mean? So I think those were the moments where I stopped thinking, and I stopped like rationalizing what I should be and what do people think and all that type of stuff. And I was like, none of that matters. I was like, how do you feel, rules? Like, how do you really feel without your mind trying to rationalize it? And I think when I really sat with that and created space for that, I think that's when the answers are in plain sight. My mum had been telling me that I'd been burning the wick at both ends for 5 years, and I finally heard the message. You know what I mean? And my relationship was, disconnecting, and I finally heard the message. Like my friendships, like I hadn't spent time with people, and there was just these reactivity and projections. And I was like, I finally got the message. I hadn't been on a surf trip and done something I loved for a long time, and I finally got the message. You know what I mean? I was like, you've got this. You know, your internal dialogue says this, but your external reality is doing the exact opposite, and that's where the disharmony came. So when I reconciled that, that's, I think, where the shifts happened.
Okay. So I understand that you had that vision with the pics that you share with us. You had that vision of living this lifestyle. You had it's a strong desire. Like inside, like there is nothing more important than that. If you do that, you know that you win. You know that you're successful.
100%.
But before to get that, before to be there, what were the self-sabotaging stories you were telling yourself, the fears you had, the limiting belief you had, all the things that could have make you not take the decision to go for it, like before you decided to take a leap? What was in your mind? Can you share with us?
So, I think it's a great question, because it's like you have to look back on the story that I shared before about the social and the cultural construct that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Like, first person, like in my family, to go to university and get higher education. No one in my family had run a business before. My mum had traveled the world, and she'd really lived her ideal lifestyle, and she was asking me the right questions. But we were also living in a lot of scarcity in a developed country. You know what I mean? So it was like this was the environment that I was growing up with, and it created this little human, you know, that kind of played by the rules, but also was given the permission to draw outside the lines. And I just remember that, you know, this trying to play by the rules all the time, and it didn't fit, or it didn't make sense, but I did, you know. So I think the biggest thing was like I got committed into living a life that I never really chose. Do you know what I mean? Because I was just doing what society said. I was doing what culture said, and because I had the opportunity to get a higher education, I should have. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, it's like the emotional thing. It's like you're the first one in the family to do it. You must do it. And then, you know, I get out of university and realize I got $100,000 in HECS debt. And I'm like, whoa. So it wasn't education. That was a $100,000 loan to learn a skill. You know, I was like, for $100,000, I wonder if I would have like started my own business or done something different, you know, and create positive cash flow and started living this lifestyle at a younger age rather than waiting until I was like 28, 29, right? So I was like, I think a lot of it was really just looking for people in the world and finding permission from people outside of my social and cultural construct to say, you know what, Roz, like you can live that ideal lifestyle. And you can serve in a way that doesn't mean you have to be in this brick and mortar clinic sitting behind four walls and treating people. Because like I knew health and wellness wasn't sitting in a freaking white room and talking to people and like wiggling things around. I was like, for me, like health and well-being was creating these like thriving communities where people support each other, like nourishing environments, healthy natural environments, healthy humans, like, you know, these kind of infrastructure that promotes healthy behaviors. Like I can get to the beach in 2 minutes. You know, I've got technology that allows me to tune to a podcast each morning. I can work online through a computer. Like there's ways to leverage all of these things, but I was never taught that. And I was never given permission to seek that. So the self-sabotage, the things I had to overcome was like, I think casting the vision of the ideal lifestyle and then getting really clear with my values were the two biggest things, because my values helped me decide whether to go forwards, backwards, left or right. Like my future vision was true north. My internal compass was like always aligning me. I was heading that direction, and then someone would tell me something and then I'd go inwards and I'd be like, you know, dismiss that and then stay the course, Roz. Or someone would come in and say, you need to do this. And, you know, I'd kind of like, I'd look at like mentors in my life. I'm like, if they're not living a lifestyle or they're not having the level of impact or the abundance, they don't have the values that I have, I'm not going to take advice from them. So I just learned to like put on noise cancelling headphones, so to speak, and really tune in. And then that's where it kind of unfolded.
So that you can focus on yourself that way. Yeah. The best way to know what you have to do and who you are is to take time with yourself, spend as much time as you can with yourself. And did you have some fears about the future? Because I guess you had, at that time when you decided to live that desired lifestyle, you had no business plan or whatsoever. Did you worry about what can happen, or not at all?
I think like one thing that happens is you develop a really positive mental attitude, for life, and it's like a lot of people see me and be like, oh, like you got this really beautiful positive bias. I've even had some people say that it's like toxic positivity. And, I know that's just a projection of the way that they're reacting. I know what my intention is, but it's like, I feel pain. Like I see the pain in the world, man. I live in an environment where people live on less than $10 a day. 80% of the workforce in Bali is unemployed, but I see more smiles here than I see probably when I go back home. And there's like something that is like more tangible than like money and success and all this type of stuff. And I don't know, there's something human that's really missing from the picture, dude. And I think like experiences are where it's at. Like if you go and experience these cultures and experience these new things, then you can live outside your comfort zone. When you go outside of your comfort zone, there's going to be a resistance, because like most people, like me, I grew up in Perth. It's the most isolated city in the world, except for like maybe somewhere in Hawaii. And it's like, that was my fishbowl. So as soon as I like stepped outside of that fishbowl and started looking at other fishbowls, you start getting like tall poppy syndrome from back home. You start seeking bigger experiences, bigger environments, or more nourishing ones, or whatever. Like I love Japan, I love Bali. These environments are really nourishing to me, but for other people, that's not their vibe. But it's like, as soon as you do that, there's going to be all these projections, reactions. People are going to start, projecting their version of their ideal lifestyle on you. And amongst all of that, you just need to figure out what's good for you, and then show up as a good human, then act and react from that space. And just keep it really, really simple, man. I feel like that's the biggest secret. The abundance is so big here in Bali, and like I said, a lot of people live on less than $10 a day, but they tune into the 12 universal laws through actions every day, by giving, by sharing, by circulating. Like they might not have any money, but everyone's getting by. And there's still a lot of smiles, and a lot of the locals are surfing and living their ideal lifestyle that we, have to pay to go on a holiday to do. You know what I mean? So I kind of sit back and I'm like, who's got the developed and the less developed country? You know what I mean? Maybe that's true. If we did it through values, it'd be something different, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love what you say about there are some people who might not like Bali, and there is a great insight, a great key here is like the way to know yourself and to know what you're meant to be here is by taking action. So if you go to Bali, Bali is just an example among all the places in the world, but if you go somewhere, then you can feel, is it the right place for you or not? And if it's not, then you know that it's not, and that you have to keep seeking the place that is good for you. And if it resonates with you, perfect, you got it. But it's not by staying home and wondering, asking yourself thousands of questions that you will have the answer. It's by putting yourself out there that clarity will come, and that you will have the answer later when you look backwards.
Yeah, and you've hit the nail on the head. There's like that saying that gets that little cliche, but it's like, remember that question I asked you at the beginning: are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you connected? Right? And irrespective of like I had degrees on the wall, I had my dream job, all that type of stuff, I kept on saying no to those questions every single day. And I was like, the thing that resonated with me at the time is like the definition of insanity was to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I was like, I do not know whatever is going on in this thing that I have constructed, but I've done everything that everyone told me to do, and I'm not feeling good, and I don't feel connected. And I said, okay, well, what's next? I was like, change anything, do something. You know what I mean? Like, do something different. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, go to a comedy club. Like, get outside your comfort zone. Do like, if you love singing, go sing. You know what I mean? For me, I looked at my vision board, and I remember that there was a trip to the Mentawais that I hadn't done, and been there for 4 or 5 years. I said no to these surf trips over and over again. And I remember in that moment, I booked the trip like the next day. And then the funny thing is like on that trip is where I met one of my good friends, Ryan. Ryan had a villa in Bali, the same picture that I had on my vision board. He literally walked into this villa, it was the same freaking thing. So it was like all these things were building up to that moment where I felt that feeling, and then I self-realized that I was running around in circles and creating that existence for myself. And then I just decided to change something. And it's like I said, it's not like, it doesn't have to be buying a one-way ticket to Bali. It's just change environment, change the flow of what you're doing, ask different questions, show up in a different vibration, hang around different people, rather than go on the pub on a Friday, maybe go do something that you actually enjoy doing. And I just remember, I always ask myself, I'm like, would I regret doing it? And if I say no, or I say yes, it kind of dictates where I go. If I say yes, I would regret doing it, then I find a way to do that thing. Because I've just got this affirmation. I just want to live a life with no regrets. I want to really tune into this human experience and see what's possible, knowing that anything's possible. Elon Musk is doing what he's doing with SpaceX and Tesla, and I know there's that young kid in Africa created that wind farm, which generates power for his entire community. It's like anything is possible from anywhere, and I think that's such a beautiful thought too.
Yeah, as long as you keep going for that way, it will unfold later. But it will not unfold if you stay at home and wait and see.
Or keep doing the same thing, or keep heading in the same downward cycle. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I love that. And what was your vision in terms of business? What was your plan when you decided to go for it? What did you want to do? What is the big picture you had in mind? And once you decided to go for it, what are the synchronicities that happened that were aligned with the frequency you were? Like the thing that is you cannot even believe it,
Yeah, well, I think through my own personal experience, and everyone will have their own, right? They've got something that is meaningful to them. The meaningful moment to me was when I earned my health back, and I was someone that had spent a lot of time and energy and money and resources. Like I dissected human bodies. Like I had DNA like on a stick in front of me. Like I'd worked with some of the most high performing athletes in the AFL system, and like got all these kids and screened them and got them back on the park, got them drafted, and I was like, I knew how to like really nourish the human vessel to do things, right? And then I learned how to do it in a way where people could then do it for their entrepreneurial journeys. And it was like, I guess the hardest thing about like bringing the vision into reality was to really find what that meaningful moment was, which was for me feeling the pain. And then looking down the rabbit hole and seeing that 7 in 10 people that I cared about were still suffering from that challenge that I had just worked through. And then there was this sense of guilt and shame. And it was like, I would feel guilty if I didn't do something about it. And then I turned that guilt into like this acceptance and this love and this gratitude for the journey, this really painful journey that I'd been through. And then it became the bigger vision and the reason why I get out of bed every morning. Because I was like, I just look at my nieces and my nephews, I look at my cousins, I look at my mum's nearly 76. I know she had a beautiful life, but she's lived a very restricted life, and I look at, if I ever have kids one day, I don't want them to grow up in a world where, 7 in 10 people are, living with cancer and type 2 diabetes and having strokes and heart attacks, and in a world that thinks that's normal. You know what I mean? I want them growing up in a world where the Okinawas in Japan, like these places, Sardinia in Italy, the Hunza Valley in Pakistan, these beautiful, connected, natural communities, Costa Rica, I even imagine Bali being one of these blue zones as well. And just finding this kind of like creating beautiful environments for people to thrive, man, together. I think that's where the vision came alive. But it started with a really beautiful pain point. It started with me having to go on the journey first. And then, like anything, we'll teach what we most need to learn ourselves. And I'm still learning self-care. I'm still learning the impact. I'm still learning these things, but I'm sharing the journey as I go. And I'm grabbing, stories and mentors along the way and sharing their story as well, because I learned that it wasn't just what people didn't just resonate with me. There's a female who's 45 and she's a mother with 5 kids. She's not going to relate to me. I need to find a woman like her that's been through something like she's been through and talk about self-care in the context of her life. So then the vision just kind of grew and grew and grew. And the more I made it about them, the less it became about me. And then the more I tuned into the synchronicities of, Zooms like this, or, a message and an email or a connection, or when I got really clear, I asked the right question. I asked the right who knew the how. And then it was just like things just started to move. And then all of a sudden I'm living my ideal life in Bali and I'm creating this thing. And, like I have times my bank account hits zero because I'm self-funding the project. I'm like, cool, cash flow, how do I get more money? Then you tune into that question and then it just kind of unfolds, you know what I mean? So it's just like from one challenge to solution, over the journey with this beautiful internal compass, with this vision as the end goal, whilst enjoying the process, plus having a beautiful community around you, and then trying to maintain a positive mental attitude, even amongst chaos and all that type of stuff. So I think it gives a lot of context of what the journey is like. And I think it takes a resilient type of person to keep going. I think that's the part of the story that's missed, is a lot of people give up and just go back to safety and security because it's easy. And they'll probably just, they were just a couple of little, challenges away from really breaking through to something really special. And I hope that inspires someone to just keep pushing, not pushing, but keep finding a way through that. And it might be the biggest hack there is to find the who that knows the how. Because if your level of thinking has got you to that challenge, then it's like there's someone there that's like, hey man, jump over that fence or dig under it, or hey man, open the fence, or like walk around it. You know what I mean? There's like solutions to every challenge in life. So but yeah, hopefully that answers your question, man, about the driver behind the vision. But
I believe that, and resonating with what you say, is like you fail only when you give up. That's all. As long as you keep going, even if you go through some mistakes, I would say, or other pain points, you don't fail. It's just part of the journey. And
failure is a construct. You know what I mean? Like who defines what a failure is? If you're trying and learning and growing, it's like when a baby learns how to walk for the first time. It falls over 1,000 times. It doesn't fall over and go, this isn't for me, and kind of gives up. It's got a goal. It wants to get to that donut, or it wants to get to that dog, or it wants to find a way to get from here to here, vision and like its current position. And then it looks around at the world and like models the other adults. And then eventually it like couch surfs its way across and it finds a way to get there. You know what I mean? I think that's all it is. And it's like the baby doesn't even know what failure is. It just knows it needs to get there. It's going to fall over a couple of times. It cries, it kind of figures it out. And I think that's our journey in a nutshell. And it's just embracing that I'm going to fail a million more times. Like how many times has Elon Musk failed? He's $1 trillion fails, with these rockets and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, oh, cool. It just goes again. You know what I mean? I think it's because the vision is something bigger. You're heading somewhere, and it's like you just embrace. Obviously, you don't want to do things at the expense of others, but it's like if you can fail in a way and just learn quickly from it and just get a rubber ass and keep bouncing forwards, it's I don't know, it becomes part of the fun, I guess.
Yeah, it's part of your journey after. And can you tell us more about those synchronicities that happen to you? So what I call a synchronicity is something that happened to you without you like looking for it. The kind of, you said message, opportunities. It can be like an opportunity, an event, another idea, an intuition, something that came to you that were aligned with your vision and that allow you to kind of not grow gradually, but take another leap, grow exponentially towards your vision. Like, do you have example of things that happen to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. When I became, that wake up moment that a lot of people have, like that point of desperation, like the barrel gets pulled up, and then you spend all this time investing in yourself, and you get really clear, and it's like, oh, I see the world with like complete new eyes. Like you wake up. For those that have experienced it, you know what I mean. But it's like you start to see the world with new eyes, and it's like in that moment I got really clear on the type of people that I wanted to spend my time with, and it was people that wanted to have fun and do things without doing it at the expense of others, find a win-win-win scenario for the world and for themselves and for their family, for their community, for their culture, and do it in a way that creates like these circular and shared economies and so on and so forth, right? So I remember just like tuning into that. And then I kind of like, it could be a Facebook post. It could be like actually being intentional and searching for it on Google or asking a friend or whatever. And I remember I just like started searching for things. And one of the things I first popped into was after the surf trip and doing something for myself. I tuned into Mind Valley with Vishen at his first A-Fest, I think over in Phuket, or one of his second ones or something. And I remember that was like a really synchronous thing. I remember just like I was already invested in my own growth and self-expansion, but the vision of that was like, it's cool. This looks really cool. And I booked a ticket, didn't even blink an eye. Spent $3 grand or $2 or something. Like I didn't even know who they were. I didn't even know who Vision was, right? And I was like, the vibe looks cool. And I just tuned into it, So that was like a synchronous, courageous like moment. But then in that moment, I met all these people, as an example, I met Dan, who's been doing my website for the last 5 years. He was this dude from San Fran, and like someone like him got attracted to that space. I met Catherine, who I forgot about, and then I saw her walking through an airport, and like it was just this weird synchronicity where I was like, I usually don't take my I don't wear a belt when I go through, and I had to put my belt back on, and like in that like 2 seconds, she walked like straight past me. And then if I a second before, a second after, wouldn't have seen her. You know what I mean? Would have gone off in this massive airport, and that would happen. And then she connected me with a group of doctors, and then they were collaborating on a book. And then that was the first chapter I wrote in the book. So then that synchronicity led to this belief that, well, maybe I can write a book. And then, I had a mentor that showed up in my life through another connection with the Genius U platform and the entrepreneur platform with Roger Hamilton. And I met Paul Dunn. And I remember chatting with Paul, and through that connection, I just remember having this question. I was like, who do you know that's really good at publishing a book? Because I had all these challenges. And you got to chat with Susan. And it was like a 3-second connection. Then the next year I'm getting my book published. And then, a year of like running around in circles. And all of a sudden, a year later, the book's kind of like, it's coming out in a couple of months. So it was like, I think when you choose to like go for it, you pick your own lane and you pick your own flow. You put yourself in your own environment, like an environment like Bali, and I'm having these conversations all the day. So I'm just priming myself for synchronicities. And as long as I'm present, I know what I'm looking for and ask the right questions, they kind of show up more and more. And there's times I've missed opportunities for sure. Like there's people have said, hey, do this, and I've forgotten about it, and it probably would have opened a door to a lot of abundance, but I just wasn't ready to receive that message. And vice versa, I've tuned into things that have worked really well. So I don't know if that explains it well, but it's like those synchronicities have come by being a fish in water, and then just being in motion whilst being there.
Yeah, and I love what you say about Hayfest, because synchronicity is like the thing that attract to you, the result of you taking a leap towards your desire. They can come in very mysterious ways. And sometimes they came to you, but do you have the courage to go for it? That's the other question. It's like the universe testing you. Like, oh, you want those things, then we bring you an opportunity. Are you going to take it or not? That's the other thing. It's like life is not always like a movie. Sometimes yes, but sometimes we have the courage to grab the opportunity that come to us. So I love that.
I think a lot of people, I was going to say, Kevin, I think a lot of people say that it's like, like you have to like believe in yourself, and then you have to believe that you can do it, and all this type of stuff first. And I'm like, I understand that beliefs are like, beliefs, thoughts, actions, behaviors, habits, etc., etc. And it starts with this core belief, right? A lot of our beliefs have been like constructed by the people we grew up with and spent the most time with. We just kind of like borrow theirs until we kind of figure out what our own are, right? But I think the thing that that really changes beliefs is, like you said, is having that courage to do something, and like casting a vision and then having the courage to lean into that and step outside that comfort zone. Those experiences are the things that have changed my beliefs. Do you know what I mean? But it's like if I was trying to sit there and change my beliefs just by thinking about it and, doing all the conscious, unconscious, spiritual work and like going to all those deep levels, is like, I don't think talking about it is the way to shift it. I think it's through the action and the experiences and really linking that to something meaningful and like the type of life you want to live, man. And I think the beliefs change after that. But I just want to really touch on that because I think it's a big point that people really, really miss in this space. And that's my take on it. But I think the action is the thing that trumps it.
But my perspective on that is that it's a fuel. Like it can turn on something when you think about a desire, that you nourish a desire inside again and again and over and over and over. That it turns on something that can help to have that courage to. But the most of the confidence will come after you take action. That's for sure. It's once you take action that you realize that, oh, finally I know that I'm able to do that. So and then you uplift your confidence along the way. And you talk about
Absolutely.
vision boards, like all those activities like vision boards and thinking about the lifestyle that you want, what you want to, and picturing it in your mind, or maybe even writing it down. All those things. Do you think that all those things help you to achieve what you wanted?
Man, it's like that thing. It's like if you master your mind, you master your reality. Like we consciously co-create and engineer what we decide reality is, right? Like just look at how we developed as human beings. Like I didn't build this house, but I chose to live in it. I chose to move to Bali. Like there's all these choices that are driven by my thoughts, and it's just unraveling which are conscious and which are unconscious, and which ones are like borrowed truths, and so on and so forth, right? But I think this concept of like consciously creating your own reality is really, really important to tune into, because I don't know, I think we forget that we choose everything. You know what I mean? And we want to give the responsibility to play the blame game or the victim game or circumstance game, but it's like if we choose to think different thoughts and we choose to embody them and action them and be courageous enough to lean into new experiences, we then start living into that vision, that thing that's in our mind. And I think a lot of people have this beautiful vision in their mind. It's like there's this internal reality and there's an external reality. This mind is like, trying to paint this beautiful vision, and then you've got almost like this negative bias, which is like, I call it Daryl. And I got Martha, who's like my positive bias. She's like that grandma that thinks you can do anything, like anything is possible. But there's a 3-to-1 negative bias. We're primed that way. So there's like Daryl's like, no, you can't do it. You're not good enough. It's unworthy, self-belief. Do you remember that time you failed, all that type of stuff? Martha's like, don't worry about it. That's good. And it's like just learning to make this voice louder. And the way that I do that, sure, you can do gratitude, sure, you can do affirmation, sure, you can do podcasts, sure, you can do these things. But once a year, I script my future vision for the next 12 months. And I set my true north. And I just keep reminding myself what my true north is. And then 12 months down the track, I'll get there and I'll write this. I've written this thing and I do it every year. I'm actually on my birthday, which was a couple of weeks ago, I did it. And then I looked at this thing that I scripted. And you got to remember, when I wrote this down, none of this stuff had happened yet. And I'm getting to a point now where every single year I script the type of life I want to live, the type of adventures I want to have, the type of person, like the things I want to co-create and manifest, and blah, 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 blah. And I know there isn't a live audience, but I'd ask them, like, what percentage do you think I would highlight in green, which means it came true that year? What was in orange kind of happened, red didn't happen for whatever reasons. But, what would you think? Like, if you scripted something now for 12 months' time, what percentage do you reckon you would be able to highlight in green and actually bring it into reality? What would you say? 50%, 70%, 20%? What do you think, Kevin?
But for me, I mean, I'm trying to think about what I would have answered a few years ago, and because I know that right now my answer is 100%. But a few years ago, I would probably have said 50 or less than 50.
Yeah, and it's normal. Like the first time I did it was like maybe 60, 70% because I wasn't really clear. But once I realized that I was the author of my own biological story, physically, mentally, emotionally, and actually started scripting the story, and then being the character in my own play and being the director and figuring that sometimes I could just be the witness and kind of like play all the different planes. And I started just really tuning into this. I started like, same as you, man, like 80 to 100%. And like consider this, right? In October last year, I scripted that I was going to go surfing in Sabawa and have all these experiences and like go to this and that and blah, 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 blah. And then a pandemic hit. Still able to like highlight 80% of it. The only things I couldn't do was like going to Japan and so on and so forth for various reasons, having retreats here and there. But it was like the 80% happened. So it just made me realize that like even in the pandemic, even in the chaos, with this mental attitude, with this ability to script and to really control your thoughts and really tune in and feel into the end feeling of what it would feel like to be sitting in that vision, and then to really act and be courageous, let that feeling drive the courage, the emotions to actually lean into it, and then to kind of forget and have this like topsy-turvy round of like path over 12 months and then kind of arrive at the destination and be like, wow, how'd I get here? You know what I mean? But it was like, it all started with the scripting. and the intention,
Yeah.
GPS, and just the realignment with true north. You know what I mean? For me.
Just script your life. I love that. And for the people who bought the premium package of this online summit, you will have the opportunity to do that, to get clear on what you want to do, and to write on sentences and affirmation that will help you to nourish that desire and to go for it. Because after, the key is to going for it. So thank you for
Absolutely.
asking this question. I love it. I have two more questions for you, Rory. The first one is,
Shoot.
imagining that there is another desire within you that you haven't pursued yet, that you haven't manifested yet. And if you knew that you had 100% chance of success, like you go for it with 100% faith and 100% surrendering, what would be that thing that you would start going for it right now?
I'd want to be the president of the United States of America. No, I'm joking. But if there was one thing that I wanted to go for, and like I knew I couldn't fail. Like, man, I know it's going to happen, but I want to help co-create these blue zone communities around the world. You know, these like thriving communities that are built on these principles of collaboration, co-creation, where like it's a win for all. It's like this concept of Ubuntu. It's like, you know, what's the point of, you know, one person winning if the rest, you know, don't, or if they don't get access to succeed, or they don't get access to really truly live. I'm like, what's the point in like, you know, being in your castle by yourself and then everyone else is kind of in scarcity? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So for me, I was like, I just want, my biggest thing is to make the world work for all of us in the shortest amount of time, which is kind of like a play on Buckminster Fuller's stuff, and maybe Jacques Fresco with the Venus Project, and, you know, these resource-based economies. I know I'm just talking about the metaphors and the concepts. I know people are going to be like, like, you know, the tangibility of that, but it's like, take the story, take the metaphor of what these guys are visioning for the world, and they're visioning a world that's where there is equality, where there is shared circulation, and, you know, you can create and manifest your own abundance and have more resources, but everyone, the baseline is kind of met. And like, I think that's such a cool vision, is to, I just imagine like a world where like every child grows up in these like thriving blue zone communities, you know what I mean? Which just means they have the opportunity to optimize, like, not the human potential, optimize the human experience. And it's like, from that space, I know there's some crazy awesome innovations and solutions there in the world. You know, if we can create a freaking hoverboard based off the vision from Back to the Future, then I'm sure we can, you know, co-create and consciously engineer anything else in this world. But, you know, I guess the thing is, like I said, is like, I think for me, I just want to get back to the foundation of, like this human and nature connection. And if I could really be part of that solution in my lifetime, and just reconnecting people with people and people with nature, and then people with the stars above, and just realizing that we're all one and the same, then that would be a pretty cool thing to make happen.
Awesome. If one day you're looking for a coach for that, you know where, which door to knock. Thank you for sharing the beautiful vision and this beautiful desire that is yours. It's yours, and I know that you will make it happen. And the last question is for the audience, is an advice for people who are watching us. For the people who have, like you had, this desire, this vision, this inner calling to go for something, but those people who are watching or listening are limited because they have fears. They are not sure about what is going to happen in the future. Or people who already took some step towards it, but now feel stuck or trapped in the how to get there. What would be your best advice for those people?
Okay. Do you mind if I share screen again?
Sure, man.
I'd say this little framework is great. You know, it's I'll see if I can play. Yeah, I think this little framework is great. So this is actually something from the upcoming self-care book that I haven't really shared with the world, but I think it's it's time. It's time to just get this out there and start talking about it. But on the left-hand side is this concept of like self-care. And it's the metaphor I use is learn how to fill your own cup and serve from overflow. You know what I mean? There's 12 medicines there. Like you can see it's everything from mindset to food to movement to lifestyle to work to connection to nature to environments you're in, work lifestyle to technology to modern medicine. And all these things play a role in you living in your highest vibration or you not, living in that vibration, you igniting your human potential or not. So I think that the thing is like that, the 95% of who you are and who you become is within your control. And if people really grasp that, then they stop focusing on the 5% that is outside of their control and they take ownership. And then from that space, it's like, cool, how do I wake up and what do I do differently tomorrow? And I just look to people and like, the Hal Elrod is like master your morning, like win your day. Like I said, I get up and I tune into high vibration, positive minds, like, based on the question I have. So I'm like, hey, how to launch a startup, podcast on startups. It's like, hey, how to develop positive mental attitude. I'm tuning into the minds talking about that. Food is like, I eat mostly plant-based. I'm listening to the China study. I'm like tuning into the Michael Pollans of the world. I'm not getting caught in the noise of all the other shit that's going on. I'm just kind of like listening to the communities and the cultures, you know what I mean? So like the longevity, the places where people live over 100, I'm listening to them. I'm not listening to these like 30, 40-year-old, 20-year-old people who have an opinion about something that is, they're unconsciously incompetent about, right? So self-care is really about just taking ownership of yourself, learning how to fill your own cup, learning how to feel good every single day, learning how to live in a state of good health and well-being, then learning how to serve from that place. So that's number one. Some people won't figure that out in their lifetime. Some people will figure it out in 6 months. You know what I mean? So the journey is simple. I'd say 12 months is a beautiful thing. Commit to yourself to being the best version of yourself for 12 months in every way, shape, and form. Because it's like right now, like 50 million cells just regenerate themselves. Within 12 months, 80 to 90% of that process has kind of happened again. So you almost got like a new human vessel. So whatever your operating system is right now, like your human vessel, like you can change that into a more high vibing, whatever version of yourself, right? Just by changing your habits and your rituals and what you tune into. The second thing is like merging the self-harm, which is like what you do when you're bored, emotional, or stressed. Those behaviors that we know don't serve us, but kind of take us down into this downward spiral, whether it's the people you hang around with, whether it's drinking beers, taking drugs, like, being in those toxic relationships, maybe suppressing emotions, whatever it is, right? But really getting clear on what the self-harm is and trying to like, at least moderate that. You may swap it. You don't have to be freaking perfect, but it's like, just don't make that your 80%, and then make the self-care the 80%, and make sure you're doing these things that really help you feel in that vibration. And then self-expansion is all the shelf help stuff. But what I want you to do is seek mentors that show you where to look and they don't tell you what to see. Like this world of guruism and everyone's an expert and a coach now. It's like, I hear that, but it's like, find someone that is walking your path and it's like 2 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead, 100 steps ahead. And they can break it down into something where it's like, if someone said, Ross, how do you live in Bali? I'm like, cool. Here's the connection for the e-visa. It costs $500, a week to live the lifestyle I live. Here's a connection to somewhere to stay. And then it's like, cool, we need to find a way for you to make $500 online because you probably can't work here, right? So that would be the ABCD step for someone if they said, hey, how do you do that? So if you find the people that are living the life that you want to live, serving from the place that you want to serve, go seek their mentorship and not their guruism, because it's like anyone can make, like any idiot can make something complex more complex, but you're looking for the people that make the complex simple. They can break it down in 3 steps and really empower you to take those steps. And then the last one is once you've figured all your own stuff out and it's no longer about you, it then becomes about them, becomes about we. And this is a big one, and really understanding that, like anyone can create a ripple effect of change. You probably already have, you probably already are, but when you're living in that vibration, influence your proximity, your family, your friends, the people you care about most. Because if we all did that, we'd create a global change. You know what I mean? Rather than trying to save the world, we come back and we look after our front doorstep, our front proximity, our family, our community. Like a lot of my work, my social impact work is in Bali, because Bali is the community that is nourishing me, not Fremantle where I grew up. I still love and serve that place. But if we all just look after the place that is nourishing, looking after us, and every single person looked after their front doorstep, Costa Rica, Canada, Australia, America, Europe, Russia, whatever, we kind of solve most of the things. And then all you have to do is figure out what it looks like. What do you actually love doing? What's your passion? What's your purpose? Are you good at tech? Are you creation? Are you visionary? Are you marketing? Are you someone that loves connecting with people? You can get paid to connect. You can get paid to manage. You can get paid to move numbers around on the screen. You get paid to do whatever lights your soul on fire. Just connect it with a project that's meaningful, and then figure out a way to do it in a way that doesn't harm others or the natural world. And man, we're rocking and rolling, dude. So they're probably the three big frameworks I could share: self-care, self-mastery, and then how to create that little ripple effect of change, man. So hopefully that helped.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. I hope you can get at least one insight from that, and start to reflect on that insight and how you can implement it in your own life. Thank you very much, Rory. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having the vulnerability to share your story, share your vision, and share how you had the courage to go for it. I really sincerely appreciate that. I wish you a great sunset here in Bali. It's 6 p.m. Do you have any last words?
I think thank you, Kevin, just for having us and creating this space. And like you said, man, you're consciously creating something. And I saw the speakers that you had lined up for this. It's pretty amazing, dude. So you're tuning into this as well. And there's people in your proximity that you're giving permission slips to do the same. So cheer Kevin on, get involved. I'm an open book. I match people energy for energy. If you give me a human interaction, you figure out what my email, my WhatsApp is, or you shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, I'll do my best to get back to you. And I love to share from that space. And if there's anything I can do to support you, or if you're someone that's on a similar journey, then feel free to reach out, and because we've got a lot of work to do. So and I'm mindful that I'm not meant to be doing this by myself. So we've got a beautiful community that we're connecting with, and the more the merrier.
Will do, for sure. Thank you very much, Rory. And talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Kevin.